The Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Planted with Sara Pion. I'm Sara Pion, your host, and today I have Charles McElroy from Goldleaf. I'm really excited to have him here today. He's the founder of Goldleaf, a science-forward printing company for cannabis growers, patients, and enthusiasts. Goldleaf empowers people by helping them better understand their interactions with the plant and works to make the subject more approachable to new audiences. A former volunteer with the Marijuana Policy Project, a history supporting veterans' education and access to medical marijuana, and several years studying permaculture and organic farming in Ohio and Colorado, Charles created Goldleaf to benefit the evolving recreational and medical cannabis communities. Goldleaf products are available worldwide, and the company also provides custom design services, now adorning select dispensaries and white label products across the United States. Formerly CEO at Noble, Denim, and Victor Athletics, dispensaries and white label products. Oh, wait a second here. I went all over the place. Anyway, Charles holds a BS in Engineering, Technology, and Management from Ohio University with an MBA track at Miami University in Business. Informatics or information?
Informatics.
Informatics.
That's what they call it.
What's that?
It's like data visualization.
Oh, right on.
Yep.
Oh, well, Charlie.
It's where data meets, yeah.
That's perfect for what you do.
It is, yeah.
So tell us, I just want to say before we really get into the products, I am getting into the products by saying this, but I love your journals. And I have some of your flashcards that I was gifted, and they're just, it's just so beautiful and informative. But what I want to know is, how did you get into all of this, and how did you start getting interested in cannabis?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for the intro, Sarah. I'm super stoked to be chatting with you. So yeah, I started Goldleaf what feels like forever ago at this point, partially because 2020 is the longest year ever. But it's, I guess we're gonna be starting our 5th year of being in existence in a couple days. So I think November 1 is our birthday. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. So I've been a student of cannabis for a long time. I never really utilized it personally until later in life, but I was exposed to it more from a social platform prior. I worked a lot with musicians and activists in the Cincinnati area, kind of growing up. And that was kind of when I was exposed to, the social political angles of cannabis and how it was used to basically oppress people. So that kind of invigorated me from a younger age. And as I got older, I was diagnosed with a autoimmune condition. I tried different pharmaceuticals without much success, and I kind of found through my own trial and error, I guess, that cannabis does have a place in my personal repertoire to kind of keep some of these symptoms that I experience at bay. So I've always been very methodical and calculating in my use with cannabis, and basically because of those two pieces, it's always been kind of central in my mind. And I'm really happy to finally be working in the industry to, further the conversation, the normalization, and all that with the tools that I kind of have in my tool belt with cannabis. So after my work with Noble Denim and Victor, which were sustainable clothing companies, I kind of, cut my teeth in the business world there, learned a great deal with product development and how to kind of handle supply chains and all that. So I kind of used some of my connections from that industry and, built out the first Goldleaf products, which were the bound journals. And from there, because I do fancy myself an artist, just a different kind, it seemed logical to also have some of the infographics that we were putting in the journal, have them, be shown with with other vehicles of communication, like larger prints or cards, like you mentioned, stuff like that. So it felt like a natural fit. So that's kind of how the idea of Goldleaf came to be. Well, I guess that's how the products came to be. The idea itself was simply that nothing existed like it at the time. I wanted to show the idea of cannabis in a utterly mature, respectful, responsible way, but in a way that people can be lured in aesthetically, without being turned off by any of the, previous baggage somebody might have on the subject. So, mix all those together, and that was kind of the recipe for Goldleaf. 5 years later, here we are.
Well, I just find they were one of the first journals that I saw that I really liked because, like you said, they're very accessible, and it really directs a person more towards destigmatization and normalization. Mm-hmm. I always find it really fascinating talking to people about how they got into working in cannabis or in the cannabis industry with cannabis, however you want to, state it. But one of the things that I've noticed, there are some definite patterns, because last episode I spoke with Harry Rose from Rosette, and he has an amazing cannabis mind. He's definitely coming from like the scientific realm with his formulations. But he also got into cannabis because of things with he had autoimmune issues. And for me, it was, initially I did it for my cancer, but I have Hashimoto, so I have autoimmune stuff that cannabis addresses really well. And I think it's a really amazing thing when those of us who the use has resonated for us, that we've taken other steps to make it accessible for other people. Yeah,
that's interesting. My brother-in-law was recently diagnosed with Hashimoto, and I haven't really dived in or taken the plunge to help him with the research side, but maybe after the podcast we could talk about that a little bit, because I'd love to know more about your experience there. But yeah, it's an amazing medical tool. And I think that's how a lot of people kind of get exposed to it or get opened up to it. That said, I think, we're fooling ourselves if cannabis doesn't have an element that is simply enjoyable to people. It's always tough to separate the medical from, I guess, the enjoyment side or the recreational. Oftentimes those are kind of symbiotic. So, I guess the great thing is that the dangers are very slight in terms of personal experimentation with that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think for me personally, it's like, because I started out so immersed in medical cannabis, I just always take for granted that the euphoric, enjoyable aspects of it go hand in hand, but it's also the privilege of being just immersed in cannabis. I kind of, you know what I mean? But
Sure.
That is one of the things that I really enjoy about your products too, is that you have a lot of different kinds of journals to cater to whatever direction people want to approach their cannabis use. Do you want to talk a little bit about the different journals?
Yeah, absolutely. We do focus on those different hyper niches, and I love it. Like, I love the different reasons why people are passionate about cannabis. And what we found at Goldleaf is there are a lot of people who are passionate about cannabis, but most people are not passionate about the same single thing in cannabis. So we have, like, in terms of our data, it's sort of maddening because our trends and our demographics and the different audiences that we speak to are often wildly different, in all categories that would kind of make sense. So it just kind of allows us, like, we're one brand, but within us, there's arguably three branches that all have slightly different missions and slightly different approaches. So we work hard to always team up with experts in any of these areas that we discuss. Medical is obviously a big portion of what we do. I'd say the second biggest would be cultivation and growing, which I've always personally had a great curiosity about, and I've been able to scratch that itch throughout my life. But I really love being able to make something that's so practical for those types of people, those home growers, those craftspeople who want to get better and understand their process more. And then, the third branch would be what we just call kind of culture. So that would be the enjoyment, the recreational side, the canna-tourism, the culinary arts, the intimacy, and so on. Obviously there's some overlap with all of these. I regularly hear from medical patients who enjoy kind of our cannabis taster journal more than the patient journal, because the patient journal takes such a clinical approach to it. It was co-authored by physicians and medical experts, and so the language follows that. We're very, very mature and clinical in the way that we talk about things, whereas with the recreational side, we can kind of be a little bit more witty, I guess, in the words that we pick to describe things. And that's disarming for a lot of people. Depending on your situation, you might like that more subdued tone, with your journal and with the prompts and stuff. And you might find that, I figured out my routine. I know what I like now. But within that, there's lots of other products to explore that kind of fit within that microcosm of what works for me. So at that point, you could maybe level up and go try a journal that focuses on, more of the recreational specific things like the grow styles, the different product types, the locations, even down to the terroir of the different farms that you're purchasing from.
Yeah, I love that.
There's a lot. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. I guess that's my piece, Sarah. So.
No, I think it's important to have those tools, and I like that you have a variety of different ways to approach it, because it really is about what resonates for the user. A lot of times when I used to work behind the bar, I'd have people come up and they'd be trying to use cannabis, whether it was, medicinal or just for a certain feel, or, whatever, however they were utilizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And they would be frustrated sometimes. And I'd ask, and a lot of times they would even dump stuff in front of me, just like a whole bunch of different products. And I'd ask them what happened, and they just like kind of furrow their brow and they're like, I don't know, it just didn't work. And that's where the journaling really comes in, because I think that cannabis is it's a unique opportunity to ground and get in touch with how the things that we put in our bodies, not just cannabis, but anything, creates a reaction. Yeah. And that we often have more information for ourselves than we know.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. I think cannabis is unique in the sense that when you're trying to figure out what works for you, there's no playbook There's no prescription or specifics that anybody can really lend that's going to be your secret sauce. You just have to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why I always liked the analog method more than like apps or something. I'm very fluent with computers. We do all of our design with computers and all that. But going with a journal was very intentional from the start because of the mindfulness elements of it and the way that it forces you to slow down, and it actually will improve your retention and your memory for the things that you're noting. So that seemed like such an important part for anybody's, speaking medically, like anybody's therapy, to be able to kind of have that extra thing going on when you're trying to understand your body. And the same's true with any of those other categories of things, like growing or intimacy or anything, like having something that is patient there with you, that's not distracting or barking notifications or a constant security risk or whatever it is. The journals just kind of make sense.
I agree. I think that, I always, in my classes, I always talk about, this crazy world we live in where we're rushing from project to project and pre-COVID from place to place, inundated with our cell phones, our laptops. It's like we do lose touch with our bodies, and it's an amazing grounding exercise. Oh gosh, there was something I was going to say. I just had a moment here. But I know what it was. When I teach classes, I always tell people, if you come to my class, you read a really great education book, you read research, what you're getting back is useful information, but it's a foundation, because it's a report back on how that control group, or in some cases, a majority of human beings, respond to cannabis. And, people are always surprised. Like when I do lectures for pharmacology students at UCSF, and they want to have exact dosages and ratios for things. And that's when I look at them and I'm like, but that's not how it works. Even if you tell your patient something, you're going to adjust it as you watch how they respond. And they're like, yeah, because, it is. It's our, in some cases, our gender, because of the way estrogen works with, THC, our age, our neurodiversity. There's so much that comes into play when we're looking at our personal use. And then when we're going into, the other kinds of journaling, just like being able, like with growing, just recording what your experience was, so you can look back on it and learn from that, it's a great tool. And I think that it's, in some ways, journaling has become a little bit of a lost art that we really need to reclaim.
Yeah, it's a great point.
So talk about some of the other products that you have, like the cards and some of the prints and some of those items as well, because I think that the journals are great, but some people are more visual than writing, and I think that and those cards are just so beautiful.
Thank you. The cards are, just so your listeners know, if they haven't seen them, they're basically like pocket-sized infographics. So there's a lot of information there, but it's packaged in a very visual way. It's something you can kind of come back to and reference in a way that's just not all text-based, So our print side has kind of quickly become like almost the majority of what we do from a design standpoint. We obviously iterate on our journals pretty regularly when new info comes available, or we get additional feedback from our partners or customers. We'll kind of integrate those and make newer versions. Our patient journal is in its 13th version now, but it's a pretty slow moving thing, and those changes are not big. what's really been exciting is to be able to kind of use our design shops, and our team has some great designers on it. And because we exist in the cannabis space and we touch all of these niches, we can kind of exercise all kinds of crazy ideas design-wise. And if they don't make a big splash, it's not very risky for us from a business standpoint. Mm-hmm. So it's very enjoyable because we can do all these like strategic partnerships with different organizations and different people in the cannabis community to take their ideas or take some concept and make an art piece out of it. We obviously like when that art piece is also informational, but it doesn't always have to be. We do, I guess art forward stuff as well. And one example of that was this vintage travel print series that we did. And I'm sure people have seen those like vintage travel posters, those like lithographic style art prints from, I guess like the turn of the century, early 1900s to maybe like the 1950s. That's something that is really popular in my hometown of Cincinnati. Cincinnati used to be quite a printing behemoth, and actually all of those lithographic prints throughout the world, including ones that are like visit Italy and visit Paris and stuff, were probably printed in Cincinnati.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, there's a really cool museum here called the Taft Museum that has some of those old artifacts, and there's a lot of like letterpress folks still around, and so it's pretty neat. But we wanted to do something that was inspired by that aesthetic, but was also something for the cannabis community. So what we did was we took, we kind of started with just a handful of locations and took something that is unique about them from a cannabis standpoint and made like an illustration, but we brought cannabis into it, but in the most subtle way possible. So somebody could be like, oh, look at this beautiful Oregon forest. It says, visit Oregon or whatever. And they walk up to it. And then they will notice that there are, cannabis plants in the foreground or growing around the feet of the stag or, something like that. Or in the case of Colorado, showing a hoop house, like a, one of like the old school types of greenhouses that were kind of popular when they first legalized cannabis, with a beautiful night sky above it. So it looks like a kind of like a fun illustrated outdoor image, but it has subtle cues to the cannabis culture unique to the state. And we were able to partner with some really great artists that we've been fans of for a while for each of these. And one of them, we also partnered with some nonprofits to donate proceeds. So whenever that print gets sold, we donate the proceeds. And that's something we do pretty regularly at Goldleaf as well. It's just our small way of being able to contribute to the causes that are meaningful to us. I'm certainly aware that we're not a giant company, even though we have a big wide audience. We don't sell things that are as highly valued as like cannabis plant material. And that's sort of by design. It allows us to be able to ship everything worldwide and to have fans in Australia and Africa and everywhere else.
And not have weird federal taxes.
Yeah, exactly. Not have our bank account shut down.
Right.
Be able to buy insurance. So that's been nice, but our items are not wildly expensive, even though we go through great lengths to make sure that they're high quality. Goldleaf's kind of a labor of love, and this is kind of one of the ways that we can kind of give back. One example of that is a new kind of product bundle we are doing this season, where all the proceeds will be going to the Wildland Firefighter Foundation, which is excuse me, which is a group of a nonprofit who assists families of firefighters who were injured or killed in the line of duty.
Wow, that's an awesome thing. What is in the bundle?
It's just some of our kind of more popular items. There's a cannabis taster, cards that are about like a card pack about the generally cannabis quality, so all of the components that go into that, and one of our botanical illustration prints. So I know it's a small thing, but we wanted to find something that could kind of touch upon the wildfires kind of plaguing the West Coast. That wasn't unique to any one state. So this organization works with all of those firefighters and volunteers in like kind of a egalitarian way.
Oh, I think that's really cool. And I mean, I think that, it's like whatever people can do to be able to help, because it's been a rough year for a lot of people. I think it's a beautiful gesture, and actually the package itself sounds like it would make a really nice gift for the holidays.
Yeah, I hope so. It's still hard for me to talk about even.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, I know it's impacted a lot of folks, way worse than us. We have some people on our team who have been displaced from them, but I know that pales in comparison to, other individuals, and then like the economics of it all, which we've definitely noticed that with some of our partners who have had to kind of be uprooted or change their plans for a third time in 2020.
Yeah. It's nobody wants to hear the word pivot anymore. It's just so awful. Here in Northern California, Californians, we've always been aware of fire season, but like the past 3 fire seasons have been just insane. And it's like, I don't know how people can't understand that the world is changing and we need to make some choices, because, if I don't have children, but I have nieces, and I would really like the world to be safe for them when they get older. And if they decide to have children, it's nuts. But I think like, what you're doing with that, and just even like the products that you're doing, like the normalization of cannabis and, and the educating of oneself, these are all things that are really important as far as like creating good policy. Like, and this goes across the board. Like, I think that cannabis in many ways for some people is actually getting them a little bit more politically active, so that and then it gets people thinking about other things that they need to be politically active about. I know here in California, like after legalization, we had people knocking down the door of the dispensary wanting to purchase without a recommendation. And so we had to have kind of like a Stoner's Civics 101, like, no, once a bill has passed, now we have to set up everything. We have to set up the reality,
Right.
Or when people get upset that, cannabis is expensive, and getting upset at the producers or the dispensaries and getting them to understand that a lot of it has to do with parameters that are set by the government and taxation. And, and that's when I tell people, if you don't like what you're hearing, we need to really get engaged with our policymakers and let them know that, we're productive, we use cannabis, and we vote. And that's not just cannabis. It's stuff with the environment. It's, creating new policies to keep people safe. So maybe we won't have as much of this crazy fire season stuff, or what we're doing with the pandemic, how it's being handled.
Right. That's a great point, Sarah. Like, I remember going to a conference in Canada, in Ontario, and this was something that they're trying to still deal with, which is, cannabis is legal, but we're only seeing less than 50% saturation in terms of the amount of cannabis purchased. Less than half of it comes from a legal source. So why are people still turning to the black market? And it's mostly cost.
Yeah.
And so this is like very kind of a like dipping into the political realm, because it's like, what do you want out of your community and your life? Do you want to simply be like, well, black market's cheaper, so F off legal cannabis. I'm just going to keep getting it from my grower connection or whatever it is. Or do you want to set up a system for legalization where those growers and those purveyors are able to get into that business legally without so much restriction? And some restriction is very good, but not the kind that cripples a business and makes it hilariously impossible to do things right. It's like, do you want hope? Do you want to believe in hope and push for something better? Believe that you can do something better? Because if you do, then you need to work for it. You need to, like you're saying, you need to kind of work to impart change to make things better, instead of just throwing in the towel and saying, like, I don't know, like a libertarian stance where you're just saying, like, I'm just going to grow it myself or buy it from my neighbor. We don't need anybody else involved. That's not going to work for most people. So while it works for some, it's not going to work for most people, simply because, people live in cities and you don't have the luxury of space or time to do all this stuff. Right. So,
right. And
go for it.
It's also, it makes it hard for small businesses to go legit, because there are so many people I know in California that really did not want to be in the illicit market. But, when things are so constricting, it's like you don't have much of a choice. And I also worry because for as many producers that are in that market that have beautiful product, there are also, because we don't have, like, in California, everything has to get tested before it gets on the floor of a dispensary, which is really good, because we haven't had fatalities from cannabis. We've had fatalities from contaminated cannabis products. And you could get that in the illicit market,
absolutely,
and it's a disservice to everybody. I mean, when I was vice chair of the legalization task force for San Francisco, before we passed legalization, we made the suggestion of, if somebody gets busted for, cultivating to sell, or just, selling illicit from the illicit market, instead of, pressing charges, can't we give them a brochure for, like, a connection to how to be able to get your business into a space where you don't have to be looking over your shoulder?
Yeah, well, you're taking money out of the prison's pocket doing it that way.
Well, yeah, but it's such a hot mess, and it's all about big business.
Yeah, I know.
Especially in Ohio, because you had that the one time where you were trying to pass cannabis, and there were those three jokers that were basically going to monopolize everything.
Yeah, and that I was thinking of that, like Athens County and Meigs County have been like big producers of cannabis for since the 60s. And I think, I don't know if this is true because it's impossible to tell, but a lot of the Star Wars themed cultivar names were birthed here. And there's a lot of growers in those areas, and they elect sheriffs based on how lenient they are on cannabis. Well, when that ballot initiative was going on, which, like you said, would create state monopolies for a few millionaires. One of them being like linebacker for the Bengals or something like that. The other one being a backup singer in a boy band, 98 Degrees.
Right, I remember that. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's so absurd, and you know, a lot of those folks realize like this is an industry that like we've helped facilitate for decades, and they're totally left out of the picture, 100% left out. So they kind of banded together and voted no on that ballot initiative, and it still got like 30% of the vote, which, you know, we're all glad that it failed. But what we have now in Ohio is not all that dissimilar from that version. It's more, there's a few more players than I think the 10 from that one we're talking about, but it's still hyper limited. And those same folks kind of in those rural counties who have been cultivating cannabis forever, they're still left out because they don't have the millions of dollars to put in escrow to secure their permit, which, again, there's a finite amount. So it is an example of how a state kind of messed up with their rollout. I've heard talks that we're going to change it with a ballot initiative. It was supposed to be on the 2020 ballot, and I think we would have been legal in Ohio had COVID not happened, because once that happened, everybody's priorities changed. You're not going to be collecting signatures during a pandemic, so it got kind of pushed back, and it probably won't be until another presidential election year where, you know, people are coming out to the polls in high numbers, you know, namely like more, I guess, Democrat, liberal leaning people. Although, you know, most people, whatever political leaning you have, do favor cannabis. I mean, look at John Boehner.
Oh, yeah.
The famous Republican and
also Michael
Congressman
Steele.
from the county that I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Boehner was very
Mitch
anti-cannabis.
McConnell even, like, yeah, they're all like very Republican, but very big investors in the cannabis space. So I guess that is a good thing. You know, but it shows you that it's not really that political of an issue.
No, it's
I don't
very
know
bipartisan.
how every libertarian. Yeah, right. Even you know, the libertarians have been on board with this for a long time, obviously, because it's personal freedom.
Right. If you want to smoke your weed,
So,
do it, and we'll leave you alone.
yeah, which is great. Like, then come out and vote. You know.
That's it. We really need people to be activating and doing more of that. I also think too, because I do, well, we're in COVID now, so I don't right now, but I do a lot of traveling, lecturing in states where they're considering medical or just cannabis programs in general. And one of the things that I've realized is that, you know, policy isn't based on fact. It's not based on education. It's primarily based on two things: state culture, which is really strong. I didn't realize, like, I've been to different states, of course, but like really, you know, when you're doing it as a tourist and when you're doing it as somebody who's actually talking to people who are making policy, it's really different because you get a feel for the culture of the state. But it's that and stigma.
Yeah.
You know, these are not educated decisions that are being made.
Yeah, I'm not surprised there. I thought you were going to probably say fear as one of those things.
Oh, yeah. I lump that in with stigma.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, just bake it into one of those. But yeah, it is sad. Like anything that we've been talking about politically this past year plus, facts don't really sway anybody or matter all that much as your perception, you know, as kind of the fear of it or the stigma, I guess. So with cannabis and anything else, like, we almost need to come up with like a new vocabulary, a new way to handle these things. And I think this is like really uncharted waters for us psychologically as a country, to be in this position that we're all in.
Yeah. Well, it's, between fires, COVID, uh, everything else is going on. We had locusts this year. I mean, it's getting
Oh
biblical.
man.
It's getting biblical up in
It,
here.
yeah, right.
Every time I hear about like when we got the murder hornets, I was like, all right, I give up. I give up. I'll be
Yeah,
there
do
to
we have to
vote.
call them that? Like, what is it? Yeah,
I know. But I mean,
yeah,
I think like at least for myself personally, the one thing that this year is really, it's like thinking about the fact that the world is so much bigger than ourselves, and there are a lot of people who, need our support, and supporting these people, having compassion for our fellow human beings, doesn't take anything away from us.
no,
It's like
nope.
with all the stuff with, and, I hate to, well, actually, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, and I'm political. How about that? But, with all the stuff with, I mean, just looking in the cannabis industry and how people were viewing Black Lives Matter and the pandemic and anti-maskers. And it's like, okay, so we have people who have been marginalized and not treated well. And we need to look at this. And this has nothing to do with taking away from anyone else. You can wear a mask and you're not going to hurt anybody. You're not going to hurt yourself. You're going to do exactly the opposite. You're supporting people who have compromised immune systems. If you stay home,
Yeah,
we all get to go out soon, because I have a mother-in-law in her 80s who's incredibly depressed because she can't hang out with her friends, because if she gets sick, she'll die. Like, she has leukemia.
yeah,
And it's like, come on,
hmm
people. Let's look at we all benefit when we actually are thoughtful and active and taking part in our political process, and staying home when we need to stay home, and speaking up
yeah,
for people who really need our help right now and our support.
yeah.
I
I
don't
mean, I thought Americans were good at sacrifice. Look at how we kind of came together in a time of need during World War II, and sacrificed everything. And this anti-mask thing is, I still can't believe it. And I live in a place where I'm in the minority when I wear a mask. And we're purple, as I mentioned before we started recording. I don't know if you have that metric, but purple is as bad as it gets. So
No, I didn't
red is like,
realize that.
ooh, that's pretty bad. Purple's like everything's shutting down. So that might be an Ohio thing, but funny enough, like all of the more right-leaning counties are turning purple, or have been undulating from red to purple for the past few months. And why is this a hill to die on? Why are we even talking about masks, and whether or not they work or help? Like,
Yeah. Well, they
I don't
had,
know. It's frustrating.
it's super frustrating. And I found out that they actually had the same issues with the flu epidemic of 1918, because there were a lot of anti-maskers too. And that one, like, my great-grandmother, she had 4 children and a husband. She lost her husband. She lost 3 of her children in that.
Mm,
And it's like,
wow.
I have a ring that was my grandfather's wedding ring. So, and I always wore it. So when this stuff came up, I thought about them, and it was like, this is real. And then you find out that every time that there's been some sort of controversy around a pandemic, there are people who like just deny it. And it's like, is that something in certain people's biology? Like, is this a coping mechanism gone wrong? I mean,
Yeah,
it
it
doesn't
might
hurt.
be. That's a good
Maybe,
point.
you know?
Yeah,
But,
and
oh no, what were you going to say?
it just seems like we don't need to argue the validity of a mask. Can't we just do the neighborly, the compassionate thing, and just freaking put one on?
Yeah.
I mean, that, to me, that's the bigger thing. It's not like, even if it lowers the risk like a small amount, it's the action, it's the perception of others seeing you trying to help them.
Yes.
That is the important message. And the fact that people argue doing that part of it, I cannot compute. I don't understand how somebody could be so selfish, and kind of, I don't know if hateful is the word. I don't think that is their true motive, but that is optically how it seems to others.
Yes.
So it's more of like a psychological condition than a physical condition, with the whole mask thing. And that's especially, being around a lot of conservative Christians, and they're like, we're not wearing masks, we're holding church services. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that Jesus would be wearing a mask, or
Yeah.
he would at least say, take care of your neighbor and love one another. I don't know. Like,
I completely agree with you.
that's the part I don't get.
Yeah, I don't get
Yeah.
it either. I think that, there's a lot of holier than thou posturing for the sake for selfish reasons. And that really upsets me. Like I am not a religious person myself, but I come from a family of religious people, and the one thing that has really stumped me is that I don't think it's they love Trump. They don't believe in the masks. One of them's a nurse, and it's like, how Christ-like is that? But I also got into an argument with one of them when I went into civil rights. They're like, good deeds don't get you to heaven, prayer does. I'm like, well, you should never do anything expecting something in return anyway.
Yeah.
But are you just going to withhold and pray to yourself? How?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm with you. Like, I think I'm a very spiritual person, but I think that the religion of it, the man-made rules and mythology, gets us into trouble as a collective culture.
Yeah.
I was raised very Christian, and kind of found my own way, but what I took away from it was, the compassion angle, as being like the crowning piece. And that was a big reason why I got into like cannabis, activism, just because it seemed so absurd. And we did one art piece, that was a history of cannabis as medicine, going back to 3000 BC.
Oh,
okay,
that's so cool.
People have been using it forever. It's a core piece in traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic healing, and there's plenty of archaeological records of people in Christ's time using what is basically cannabis infused oils in ceremony.
Yep.
And they would make these oils and they would pour them on themselves and see visions. So what do you think was happening there? Like, well, one, it was highly valued as a medicine and as a spiritual medicine. So both physical and mental. And it's very likely that Jesus Christ, whoever the actual person was, outside of the myth, utilized this in some of his healings, and there are records of him using it in ceremony as well, which is really fascinating. And it just shows you that if you're full on Christian or probably any religion, everything on earth is placed here for humans' use, and it's created by God for us. So how can you possibly say that this is a plant that should be illegal, that should be prohibited and hidden away and all of that stuff? For so many reasons, the absurdity just cannot be. I can barely understand how we got here. Of course, the way we got here is greed, and that is still what is bringing everybody down.
Yeah.
Even the mask thing.
Even the
kind
mask
of boils
thing.
down to like personal greed, or I'm right, you're wrong. I need to feel right. I need to have my shout chambers or whatever. I mean, that's kind of the to use the Christian word, that's the sin that I think has plagued mankind and has caused us a great deal of problems.
Yeah.
Outside of the cannabis industry, but and within, of course.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I was raised Christian. Actually, some members of my family are apostolic Lutheran. And I was really into I am still a very spiritual person, and I believed in, all the good things, being good to one another, don't steal, like, all the teachings, the gospel teachings. But it's like when you start to see people who don't practice what they preach, and how prevalent that can be in the world, because people think that religion is a band-aid so that they can do crappy things and get forgiven. I know this is going on a totally different thing than cannabis, but it's like,
Yeah.
I wish that they taught me in confirmation class about, cannabis and Christ. That would have been interesting. Or the fact that, he was a rabbi, so he probably had a family. Beyond that,
Right. Yeah.
But it is really rich,
Yeah.
like, just the deep history cannabis has, and they say that we have had one of the longest symbiotic relationships with cultivation with cannabis, probably.
Yeah. Yep, I believe it. Are you getting that from Michael Pollan's book?
Oh, which one? The
Botany
Botany
of
of Desire? Oh, such a good book.
Yeah, I love that book. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Him and Bill Bryson are my nonfiction escape when I need it.
Oh, I haven't read Bill Bryson at all.
Oh man, I'd recommend a book called At Home.
Mm-hmm.
If you like audiobooks, or any of your listeners, they might enjoy it. The author reads it, and he's a rock star with reading his own books. But it's like jam packed with so much information about domesticity. Jeez Louise, I can't say that. Domesticity. Well, the house, basically, the home life. The history of food, of doors, of attics, of everything in such a specific, wild way. If you like Michael Pollan, I'd highly recommend any of his works. But
I wrote it down because I'm definitely going to check it out.
Cool. Yeah, anybody who has that like innate curiosity about life, I think he's great. And yeah, Botany of Desire, the way that Michael kind of captured the history of cannabis and the apple was pretty awesome too.
Oh yeah,
very cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's when going back to combining this, but also going back to when you were talking about we need a whole different way of talking about it, like creating that new lexicon for cannabis. I don't like to use the word strain. I use cultivar or chemovar.
Yeah, I do the same, and we always have to put strain in parentheses at least once in each book we do.
Oh yeah.
But we try to use the proper terms when we publish stuff, just because we want to turn the corner on that lexicon, like you're saying. And yeah, a strain is a virus, so COVID-19 is a strain.
For
Blue
sure.
Dream is a cultivar.
Well, I always, when people always get confused with that, but when you do start to like talk about, like I usually will refer to apples. I'll be like, you have your Golden Delicious and your Fuji, and they all have different properties. That's cannabis. It's a plant, but I think sometimes it's hard for people to get their head around it, because we, especially now, if people are entering using cannabis now in this day and age, everything's packaged. And so it's really, or even dried sometimes, I think there's a disconnect for people, because until you see the plant, like I did a few years ago, I did a training for a bunch of Chinese medicine practitioners. And, even though it's in their pharmacopoeia, it's also very taboo because of a lot of cultural things that happen, and especially with like the opium wars. So I actually had a cultivator that I know cut me a bouquet of cannabis plants. So it had tops and leaves, and I just put it in a beautiful vase, and I put it just right on the table next to me while I was teaching. And like, you'd be amazed at how many people come up and they're just like, it's just a plant. It's like, yeah, it is. It is just a plant. And then somebody was like, well, opium poppies. I'm like, yeah, but cannabis doesn't do that. Opium poppies might be able to kill you, but cannabis won't.
Yeah, and they're probably not going to kill you if you just have some poppy seeds on a sandwich or something.
Well, there's definitely that. It's more about harvesting.
Okay. I don't know, so I'll leave that to you. But
yeah. Well, I mean,
there are plants that can kill you for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are plenty of poisonous
plants
plants.
To do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it really is like when people start to look at it, they can get their head around, why there are different cultivars of the plant and why, why there are differences when they can actually see the plant in front of them and they see, it's this, and then when you mention something like apples or tomatoes or something, they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. I'm like, or, maybe you have different kinds of begonias. There you go. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, not to keep going back to Michael Pollan, but I think his analogy always stuck with me when he said it, which was cannabis is like the canine or dogs. Like you can have a Chihuahua and you can also have a Saint Bernard, and they're both technically dogs, but they're so far from each other that it's cartoonish, Yeah. And I think that's a pretty fair assessment of cannabis, especially. Not only chemically they can be very different, but just visually where they grow. Something could grow in cooler temperatures and in the north of Michigan or whatever, and then some of them need that hot direct sun from the equator.
Yep.
So it's pretty fascinating how varied the plant is.
Have you experienced some beautiful grows in Ohio?
I have toured a couple of the legal ones, but the rest of them, mum's the word right now. So,
Yep. I see, and that's my privilege of living in California. I forget, like, when I was in the Midwest, I was very aware of it, which was actually why I was surprised about like how Michigan like started leading the way with education, because my alma mater, NMU. Northern Michigan University, is doing stuff with science, and now they have both medical and adult use, whereas like when I was going to college, you'd have gone to prison for resin in your bowl. Strange times. Good.
I know.
Yeah,
it is good, and good for Michigan. It's very cool that we share a border with them. I know a lot of people. Actually, we probably shouldn't talk. I shouldn't.
Is this for an offline conversation?
Yeah, we'll take that part offline.
Okay. Well, you guys did win Toledo from us, and then we got in exchange we got the UP, which is where I hail from. Did you know that?
No. Oh, I did know that Toledo was part of Michigan, but I didn't realize that the UP ever wasn't.
Yeah, they got that in the deal. You guys got Toledo, and Michigan got the UP.
It's a sweet deal for Michigan.
I think so, but like back in the day when hardly anybody was up there, when there were just a few of us, people used to joke about it. More and more people go though, and especially a lot of people having summer homes up there. And
hey, they got that Confederate gold, right?
Yeah, right. I grew up with going to college, kids whose families were on the Garden Peninsula, and they were growers. That was like right near the ghost town of Fayette, and that was our source in college.
Oh, nice.
And every year someone got busted and they'd burn the crops, but somehow they managed to pull some out. So there you go. But we're actually getting close on our hour. So is there anything else that you'd like to talk about before we wrap it up? Because this is just such a great conversation. It is. We've hit a lot of spots.
We did. I'm glad I got to vent about my mask policy, as well as talk about Christianity for a bit. It's pretty great.
That's a first for the podcast. You know, we've talked about masks, but we've never actually brought up Jesus. So there you go.
Well, yeah, when you're talking about cannabis, Jesus can certainly pop his head up whenever he wants.
Oh, totally.
I'm pretty sure he was on our team with that one.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
How about
no, this was great, Sarah.
Oh, good. Do you want to give our listeners your social media links?
Yes, I'd love to. You can see what we're up to on Instagram at Goldleaf without the O, so Gldleaf. That's the one that we like the most, just because it's more of a visual expression. You can also find us on Pinterest. Again, visual expression. We also post some of our unpublished infographics and unpublished artwork that we create to Pinterest. So if you want to see some behind the scenes, some B-sides, both of those are great spaces for it.
Awesome. Are you on Twitter?
Yes, but I'll be honest, it's just an aggregate from Instagram. So I don't personally like Twitter, and so I've never been pushy with it in terms of like Goldleaf's efforts. If we had somebody on our team who was passionate about quick comments and quips, then we might light it up. But right now we kind of spend our time with those two. We also have a really great blog on our website, shopgoldleaf.com. We have a lot of interviews with folks and tutorials and information that kind of go hand in hand with some of our journals and prints. So, for example, a lot of our prints are well, not a lot. Some of them are tied to studies. And we'll publish these studies on our blog if somebody wants to kind of dig deeper. It's a great spot.
Oh, very cool. Just so you know, my producer is going to be putting this on advertising for our episode on Twitter several times a day. So you're going to get tagged. You're going to get a little action on Twitter, just so you know.
Nice.
And then also,
cool. Okay.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to mention to listeners too that MJ Lifestyle magazine has had they did a feature on the journals, I think. And I wrote an article to accompany it on the process of journaling. So check that out on the MJ Lifestyle website as well, because Goldleaf is on there too. Thank you so much, everyone. This is Charles McElroy from Goldleaf. I hope to have you on again. And actually, before we close, do you have any other future plans on projects that you're excited about?
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Well, let's see. I'm trying not to use the word pivot here. We had 3 really exciting projects that we had to kind of pull the brake on in 2020 here for a variety of complications and stuff. But the next one that we're excited to finish up, it's been in the works for almost a year, is a series on landrace genetics. So we're hoping to publish some a new batch of lovely scientific drawings of landrace cultivars, as well as some of the history of some of those specific cultivars from around the world. And yeah, so look for more in that realm of things for all those who like botany and history. Hopefully in the next couple months.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. And just really, like, when we scheduled this, I was just super excited because I've been a huge fan of your brand and what you do for a long time. So I hope we can keep the conversation going.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks so much, Sarah. It was great talking with you.
Oh, great talking with you too. And everybody out there, I hope that you enjoyed our conversation today and it gave you a little break from the rest of your day. Really think about if you're using cannabis or you have somebody in your family who's curious about it, think about journaling and really check out Goldleaf. They're beautiful products. To follow us, to follow Planted with Sarah Pion on social media, on Instagram, we are Planted with Sara, www.plantedwithsara.com. On Facebook, it is also Planted with Sara. And as you know, we are available on our the Radio Misfits Network, which is our parent network, but we can also be found on Apple, Google, Stitcher, Pandora, Spotify, and now Amazon. So check it out. And as you know, we are going to 2-episode a month format. So tune in next time when we talk about veterans and cannabis. Everyone be safe out there. Take care of each other. And until next time, I wish you well. Bye, everybody.